history of the collective, as in the history of the individual, everything depends on the development of consciousness. In order to be able to find solutions to some of the most difficult problems and crises that we face today, there has to be a positive shift in consciousness within the human race. This has to happen on both an individual and collective level. We're going to have to make the transition from being an ego-dominated and boundary-enforcing society to being one that's selfless-natured and unity-oriented. Although there's significant progress being made by humanity right now, as you know, there is still so much room for positive transformation and improvement. We can still see that the self-centered, egoistic mentality is still programmed and operating within a lot of people. The results of this can be seen everywhere, from the declarations of war to the destructive attitude towards the environment. I do want to say that thanks to the present and continuous evolution of the global consciousness, this old, autonomous, ego-centered mentality is losing its power, and it's giving away to the interconnected transpersonal mindset. More and more people are realizing that the old way of doing things is simply not working. There is a search and an intense yearning for the discovery of something different and something brighter. There is a lot of refreshing positions of awareness being experienced by people all over the world, young and old, male and female. There's this movement towards seeking to live in harmony with nature, like it once was, and not to treat the natural world as an enemy or something to be exploited. There's this shift going on right now that's integrated, holistic, interconnected, and transpersonal. It's moving away from the individualistic mentality that stems from this belief of separateness. There's a transformation from the self-centered and ego-dominant individual to the selfless and unity-oriented being. There's a shift from the competition-based mode of operating in society to the cooperative-minded means of doing things. All these shifts are occurring right now, and they're going to continue to occur if the evolution of consciousness continues down its current path, positive progression into the higher echelons of unified beingness. It's very clear that humanity is at a defining point in its history, and that it has the choice to shift its collective consciousness away from the egocentric ways of old towards the unifying and selfless ways of the possible future. If such a shift doesn't occur, well then, we may not be able to reverse the enormous problems within the environment, the global economies, and the world cultures. However, if humanity does choose to collectively come together and work cooperatively so that these problems are averted and rectified, then the future is going to be an extremely bright one. A lot of people agree that there's not a lot of time left to make the choice that will define whether we survive and thrive or degrade and disappear. Our overall level of consciousness, meaning the mental and emotional state we're in for the majority of our waking awareness, is a very significant factor in how we perceive reality. A person whose overall state of consciousness is that of anger may view the world as a terrible and dangerous place, and the people in it as deceptive and malicious. On the flip side, somebody who experiences the state of love on a daily basis may see the world and all that it contains as being beautiful, caring, and good. Now, whatever the objective reality may be, each person focuses on certain aspects of that reality and chooses to interpret experiences, occurrences, and data as defined by his or her own position of awareness. The higher the level of consciousness you experience, the more positive everything within your awareness becomes. Through this positivity, positive change can occur in the world. Shifting to a higher level of understanding and being helps us understand a crucial aspect of reality. This is that everything is, ultimately, one and interconnected as a unified whole. By attaining the state in which this realization is experienced, you can see the intricacy and beauty in all things, and this extends your empathy towards everything and everyone, since there is nothing that is disconnected from the unified field of consciousness. The more people that come into this realization, the greater chance we have at seeing a world that is truly filled with peace and behaves like one family. There are enormous transitional and transformational shifts and changes occurring right now, and this is clearly apparent if you look around. However, the end result of these growing pains is still too hazy to see clearly. The future is yet to be determined. This is why we should do our part to ensure that the future is a bright one. A future that fully empowers and liberates humans wherever they may be, where our minds shift towards unity and away from all the divisiveness that's plaguing human society. We are all interconnected, and it's time we start living life reflecting and aligning with this reality. This is the most incredibly opportunistic moment in our eclectic history. So let's steer humanity towards a bright and transcendent future. By shifting our consciousness towards unity and away from separateness, we can transform our lives and our world for the better. Our future is being determined right now by our actions and our thoughts. So let's have our actions be promotive of collective evolution through our own personal transformation. So, how do we transform ourselves? How do we become a part of the collective process of evolution? Well, here are some tips for a consciousness shift that you can create within your lives very easily. The first one is meditation. There's an old Zen adage that goes like this: you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day, unless you're too busy. Then you should sit for an hour. So basically, this is saying that the excuses that we make that, oh, I don't have enough time for meditation, that just means we need to be meditating even more. Because if we're that busy that we can't give ourselves the time to quiet our minds, then there's something wrong. So if you do feel like, oh, you don't have the time to be meditating, do an inventory of all the things that are going on in your daily life and see where you can swap some time out. Usually for people these days, it's them being on social media. So just cut out your social media time and replace it with a mindfulness meditation to start with. So speaking of mindfulness meditation, there's different kinds of meditation that can help shift your consciousness. One that I like to do is count each time that I breathe in and out from 1 to 5, and then repeat the process. This is helpful because when you're mentally saying the numbers, your mind is focused on those numbers, and you'll be less likely to have these intrusive thoughts that you usually have when you're just sitting there in meditation. Now, keeping with that theme, another kind of meditation you can do is that each time you breathe in, mentally say a positive word such as love or peace. Saying that word mentally connects you to the energy and feeling of that word as it's been used for such a long time. If you've ever heard of the term cymatics, you know that sound creates form, and if you look at water crystals that have had the words love and peace said to them, the crystals actually self-organize into these really elaborate and beautiful geometric patterns, whereas words that are very low vibrational, such as hate, they have very discordant, chaotic patterns. So the proof is in the crystals right there. But even just you feeling into the words when you say them, your body is an extremely intelligent vehicle, and it'll know, without your mind thinking about it, what feels good and what doesn't. Another way to meditate is to keep your mind focused on your present state of being so that you are completely aware of your body and surroundings. So really, this is an awareness expansion meditation where you're really just expanding your field of feeling. Another way to meditate is you can look at an object, such as a candle flame, and just forget about the entire world around you. And there's a lot of great resources on candle meditations out there to look into. So I'd like to give you some tips about meditation and what can help you enhance your meditation practice. I would say meditate at the same time each day. So if you do it early in the morning after you've slept, that's the best time before you begin your day. It really puts you on a good path and a clear mind to start the rest of the day. You can also find a spot and sit in the same place every time you meditate. You should make this a meaningful place that makes you think of meditation. That'll help you get into the meditative state of mind more easily. You can meditate when you are wide awake, and you do not meditate on a full stomach, since that can cause you to be sleepy. So meditating right before bed is not necessarily the best thing to do, although I do it on occasion. But even if you do meditate before bed, it's better than nothing. So it's best to meditate earlier on in the day when you still have a lot of energy left. You can also set a spiritual atmosphere before the meditation and slow down your mental thought process. You can also set an atmosphere before your meditation and slow down your mental thought processes. So what I mean by atmosphere is you can light some incense, you can even play some really gentle ambient music in the background, put it down really low. You can close the curtains over your windows. You can play a singing bowl before or a tuning fork. There's lots of tools that you can use to get the atmosphere in a very mindful, contemplative state. In regards to time, because this is a big one these days especially, start with shorter sittings and build up to half an hour, and eventually 2 hours or more. So even in the beginning, if you can just start for a minute, just do a minute meditation. Something is better than nothing, and we all need to start somewhere. And it seems like an hour is an extremely long time, or even more, but you would be surprised. After a certain point, you get into the state of no time or timelessness, where you may have been sitting for an hour, but it only feels like it's been 15 minutes or so. So those are just some ways that you can meditate and enrich your meditation experience. But there's other tools that you have at your disposal to shift your consciousness. So I would like to briefly touch on relationship mastery. In my book, The Creation of a Consciousness Shift, I talk about how the first relationship you must master is the relationship with yourself. This is because all too often, people are looking for happiness outside of themselves. They search for someone or something to fill the void they feel within. Some people fill it with money and physical possessions. Other people fill it with friends and lovers. What people like this should realize is that the place they should be looking in order to feel a sense of purpose and hope in life is within themselves. By being your own best friend and knowing everything and anything about yourself is critical to a successful and healthy future. If you acknowledge and face any fears, inhibitions, dispositions, and egocentric thoughts that you may have, you will be able to fully understand the mechanisms behind such forces and realize their effect on you. Now, you may experience some hesitation or fear at first, and so this is probably why so many people do not form healthy relationships with their own selves, and consequently don't form healthy relationships with others. This fear has to be dissolved away, because if not, there's going to be very little progress achieved towards your goals of self-actualization and ultimately self-realization. Once a relationship is mastered with yourself, then a strong and healthy relationship with others is able to be made in a healthy way and with an understanding position of awareness. Without this kind of mastery, relationships can crumble just as fast as they were built. And as the Hermetic adage goes, man, know thyself. We all have to liberate ourselves in order to allow the change to happen within. So don't care what others may think or say in response to your intent on living in love. This is your life. Take hold of it with all your might. Let nobody dictate what you ought or ought not to do, based on whatever social norms or constructs they may be. Allow yourself to experience the acts of giving and receiving love, no matter what anyone may think. Express the consciousness of love in whatever way you feel promotes the positive social transformation of humanity as a whole. Whatever your medium through which you transmit love, as long as you are pouring out this high energy from within, you are not only helping yourself, but the whole of humanity and the world as it exists. There are also those who express their belief that the ideas of peace, love, and serenity existing and thriving within the collective consciousness of humanity are some utopian fantasy that should be left alone within the domains of dreamers and philosophers. I would say that the thought patterns that such people generate are simultaneously adding to their implied reality of there not being the possibility of a peace and love-filled society. It becomes this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. This synergistic accumulative effect has the power to influence the actions and reactions of society as a whole, which is why it is a good idea to be aware of what sort of thought forms we are creating into existence. And remember, all thought is creative. By eliminating thoughts about the impossibility of a peace and love-centered society, we are eliminating a major hindrance in bringing about such a society. As a society progresses into higher levels of consciousness, it can progress into higher levels of existence, such as within a society based on these unifying expressions of consciousness. Although sometimes it may not appear to be so, little by little progress is being made within the present day of our reality. If we continue to be mindful of the creative power of our thoughts, we can one day collectively come to the level of awareness where we see love, peace, compassion, empathy, kindness, and harmony being the governing principles of society. The future on this timeline has not yet happened. It is only reasonable that we unite together as the human race to create a positive social transformation in the present moment of existence, without the need for approval or allowance by anybody. Each one of us is constantly living within the present moment, where everything and anything is possible if we allow ourselves to consider the infinite amount of possibilities. So why not turn an idea into reality? Let's make it happen, everyone.